Welcome to There is a Method to the Madness. My name is Rob Maxwell. I'm an exercise physiologist. I'm owner of Maxwell's Fitness Programs, and I've been in business since 1994. We are a exercise physiology personal training studio, writing programs for people and making sure that they do them. That's how to sum up my business in a nutshell. So today's topic is going to piss a lot of you off, but hey, that's what we like to do here. We like to get to the method to the madness and straighten people out, you know? People need straightening out everywhere. And in the case of fitness, they need some straightening out too. For all you abdominal junkies, for all you core creepos, just trying to think of like different little names to call you because I'm having fun right now. This podcast might really annoy you because I'm going to get into the nutshell of what abdominal training really is and what you've been led to believe a lot of the time is bull malarkey, okay? But before I get into that, I need to thank our sponsors because we're grateful for our sponsors. We now have 2 sponsors. And the first sponsor I want to thank is our original sponsor, Jonathan and Lynn Gilden at the Gilden Group at Realty Pros. They currently have over 270 5-star, not 4-star, not 3-star, 5-star reviews on Zillow and over 100 million sales between them. You don't get that kind of sales without being good at what you do, right? They can be reached at thegildengroup.com or at 386-451-2412. All right, let's get into our topic. Let's get to the method to the madness of what real core training is. Well, if you had to say, should most people do what they think of as core training or do something else? The easy answer for people who have studied physiology or kinesiology or biomechanics or any scientific field that understands the human body and what muscles do, anatomy, physiology, any of those things, they're going to tell you, no, do something else. Be far more better off to do something beneficial. So let's talk about why. And then I'm going to add the counterpoint, like why it can actually be a bad thing to do too much core training. All right. First off, core has kind of been hijacked from what it really is. Core really means core exercises, meaning the meat and potatoes of what you need to do. That's really what core training is. Now, a lot of times that term was hijacked and used to replace when people just flat out called it abdominal training, because a lot of literature came out to say that the way we were training abs was incorrect. And so then some people, whether advertently or inadvertently, kind of hijacked the core label because core, you know, has more of a functionality to it. A lot of the different endurance events talked about making sure that you have a strong core because energy transfers from your legs through your upper body back to your lower body, and the core, the middle, so to say. See, I just did it. Well, it actually is the core in that case, is helping to absorb the energy and transfer energy. So that's true. But again, then that was taken to mean then that everybody needs to do abdominal training just because they hijacked the term core. All right. So here we are. Now, let's talk about really what the midsection is, okay? Write this down, get your pen and paper. You know, as soon as I said that, there were like 3 or 4 people in my brain that popped in my brain that was thinking, you know, they're really going to, you know, pause this and go get a pen and paper. And you know what? That's a great thing because I want people to do that. I really want you to learn. I mean, we pretty much tell people what they need to do, but at the same time, we should always understand what we're doing and then understand what we need to do when we're not being told what to do. So learning the method to the madness, learning the science underneath things is very important. All right, so first off, there's 5 muscle groups of what we like to call the lower torso. The lower torso is what you guys are thinking of your core, all right? We tend to call it the lower torso region, okay? There are two types of anterior abdominals. There is the transverse abdominals, which are very deep into the muscle, very deep into the lower torso. They are responsible for keeping your body still. They're very important. They're very important. They're responsible for keeping your body still. So because pseudo experts kind of hijacked the term experts, they started saying, well then, the plank is a phenomenal exercise to do because we're going to target those transverse abdominals since they're responsible for holding the body still. So that means we need to do it statically, which means not moving. So a plank sounds great. Here's the problem with that. Not too many people have trouble holding their core or their spine straight when they're not moving. They have a lot harder time doing it when they're actually moving, doing dynamic movements, which is moving movements, all right? So the reality is, planks could be like a fun challenge and, definitely better to have a family evening, which I only bring things up because I hear it, of people doing plank offs in their house than, maybe having a video game contest or, shot contest, meaning, family sits down and play quarters. I mean, I'm being silly here, but obviously a plank off is better than, those two options with the video game one kind of being in the middle there, right? Yes, of course, but then at the same time, where should it fit into an already busy training schedule? And the answer is nowhere. Because the best time to work on your transverse abdominals is when you're actually doing lifting. When you squat, brace yourself. I don't care if you have 300 pounds on your shoulder or you're holding a 10-pound dumbbell for goblet squats. Brace yourself. I say it all the time to my clients. Keep your chest up. Keep your chest up. Keep your back flat. Descend slowly. Keep everything tight. That's really how you train your transverse abdominals. So in other words, we train it by doing things, right? So you take people that work manual labor for a living, right? I mean, they get the best workouts in the world. I mean, the reality is we don't do that kind of work anymore, so we have to work out. But you take people doing landscaping jobs, push mowers. Just use the example of push mowers. So they learn how to do it right, because if they don't, they get a backache, they get a shoulder ache, and what's the right way? So they're grabbing the top of the mower and they're keeping their chest up. They're engaging their core by pulling their belly button back. They're squeezing their abdominals and they're pushing the mower. Now they're moving, so it's dynamic, but they're pushing the mower. That's a great way to work on your transverse abdominals. And if you don't do manual labor for a living or whatever, the point is that they're a very functional muscle. But then we have to do it in the gym, but we don't necessarily have to add another set of planks when we can add another set of squats, which will be far more beneficial. And as you hear in the background, that's somebody being forced to do planks. I'm just kidding. I have no idea what they're doing. But, so that got me sidetracked. All right, so second form of anterior, or second type of anterior abdominals is the second type of abdominals, and that is the rectus abdominals. Rectus abdominals also have a good function to them. They are responsible for what is called spinal flexion. So they actually bring your chest up. They bring your chest to a horizontal position. All right, so think of sit-up, think of crunch. That is a rectus abdominal movement. All right, nothing wrong with that. If you truly have weak abdominal muscles, like somebody that might have a lot of, undeveloped muscle fibers there. Maybe they're getting hernias, things like that. So their doctor says, those muscles around your belly button really are not very well developed. They need the hypertrophy. Great reason to do them. All right, great reason. That's what you're supposed to do them for. Most people don't have that problem, especially people that have been working out and active. People inactive need to train them. I'm not saying you don't. What I'm saying is the main reason why, and look, come on, don't lie to me. Don't lie to me. You know why you do it. You think crunches and sit-ups are going to make your stomach flatter. They do not. They don't at all. That's called spot reduction. It's a myth. We've known that for probably 4 decades now. Total myth. You cannot do abdominal training and expect your stomach to be flatter at all. It doesn't burn body fat. And if you're not lean, your muscles, your six-pack, so to say, aren't going to show anyway. That has nothing to do with abdominal training. I know that's why you do it. Well, there's only 2 reasons why you do it, okay? 3 reasons. I'm going to give you the benefit of the doubt. I'm, purposely trying to poke at you a little bit because I want to get you to think. I'm giving you the science. Think for yourself. But, it's a little frustrating because we've been telling people this for years, and then people literally will have like abdominal classes. Well, they'll go and they'll do like 30 minutes of abdominal work. And like, what are you doing? That could be 30 minutes of walking, 30 minutes of jogging, 30 minutes of swimming, 30 minutes of cycling, 30 minutes of real strength training, things that like really burn calories and really make us more fit. But you're wasting your time, so to say. You're wasting your exercise time working on one area for 30 minutes. And come on, you really think it's going to make your stomach flat? That's why you do it. It does not. Only thing that makes your stomach flat is the famous push up, right? Push up from the table, push the food away. That's what makes the stomach flat, all right? Flat within the best genetics that you have with that. So when you see these lean, ripped abdominals, whether it be on women in bikini contests, men in bodybuilding shows, people at the beach, whatever, it's because, number one, they have the musculature there, and it's only one muscle group, so it would be trained like any other, and it's actually one of the easiest to train, which is why if you've ever done it, it's like, these don't even burn anymore, right? I mean, the abdominals are so easy to train, so they get developed very soon, and then they stay like that, and then they have a low percentage of body fat. There's not a bodybuilder that gets up on stage that's going to win a trophy that's over 6 or 7% body fat, and that might even be too high for them depending on their age. Those guys are around 3 to 4% body fat. Of course they have abdominals. Nothing to do with their abdominal training. Most of them that I know and know pretty well don't even train their abs. They don't waste their time. Number one, they say, I don't even feel anything. Right. Number two, they know it has no impact. It's all about diet and cardio to bring about those muscles, okay? And the other reason you may do it, I'm going to give you the 2 other reasons why we might spend so much time on the anterior core. And then I'll get into the other 3 parts of the core that need more attention that we don't give them to, all right? All right, and the next reason is core's easy, and I'm using core like you're using core. It's easy. It's the easiest way to exercise in the gym, right? I mean, ask anybody. Do a set of squats with a good load and do 20 reps. They're huffing and puffing. They're breathing. There's lactate in the legs. They're feeling miserable. If you do enough sets like that with not enough rest, it's nauseating. I mean, people get sick. I've never seen anybody say, oh, man, I think I'm going to throw up from too many crunches. No, only if you ate a pizza just beforehand, laid down on your back, and then started pushing all the gastric juices up in your throat. Didn't that sound lovely? That'd be pretty much the only way that you're going to make yourself vomit from doing too much core training. But it would just take 3 or 4 sets with an appropriate load of high rep squats and you're feeling nauseous, right? So ab training is easy. I mean, come on, it's easy. And you might say, well, I don't have very flexible, hamstrings, so some of the exercises are harder. Right, but that's harder because of a flexibility issue. It's not harder because of an exercise intensity issue. I mean, if you wear one of those watches that count calories during your workouts, just test it. Just look down, look at your heart rate, look at calories burned the last minute or so from doing crunches, and then look at it during squats. Boom. You don't have to be convinced by me. You'll go, oh man, yeah, that's true. That required very little energy to do. All right. And then the third reason we might spend too much time on abdominal training is just we really just don't know better. I mean, we really just don't know better, haven't been taught yet. Well, that's the one thing I have control over. I can tell you that right now. But that might be the real reason. You just don't know yet. All right. So it's either you think it's going to flatten your stomach. False. It's easy exercise, and you kind of will never admit that, and I know you won't. Nobody likes to go, yeah, tell you the truth. I mean, I never thought about it, but yeah, I'd rather throw the mat down and do like 300 crunches than stand up and do deadlifts and squats. Yeah, I mean, I think we all would rather do that, but we have to challenge that, right? Like, who's the boss? Who's the boss? What we want to do, or us? Hopefully we say us and go, yeah, I'm gonna override that. I'm going to override that desire to lie down and do crunches, and I'm going to do some work, whatever work I need, but it's work for a reason. And then, like I said, just to repeat, the third issue might be you just don't know better. And that's, I think that's common. When I wrote my first book, There's a Method to the Madness, I covered some of that, and people came up and things that I thought were just like really common knowledge were like, I didn't know. I'm like, oh, okay. So, that could be true. And that also says that I'm potentially not doing my job good enough if I'm not explaining that all the time. All right, so now got you away from that, hopefully. Let's move on to some of the more effective and important muscle groups. So let's go to the obliques. Remember I said there were 5. All right, so now 2 of them get knocked out right now, and that'll give us 4 we've covered. The internal and external obliques. All right. So there's 2 sets of obliques on each side. Internal, which means deeper. External, which sit on the top of those muscles. One side counters the other side. So in other words, if you rotate, then one internal oblique is counteracting the opposite side, internal or intrinsic oblique. All right? And then vice versa with the extrinsic. So in other words, one is working, the other is opposing. And then if you rotate to the other side, the other's working and the other's opposing. They're both so important. They're important. Now, they can get trained by simply doing all your other exercises. Yes, but here's muscle groups that you actually maybe should spend a little bit more time trying to develop strength. Not because of, again, reason number 1 for the anterior abs, which is that, I want my stomach flatter. I mean, some people use that with obliques too. They'll say, oh yeah, I got to work those love handles. It's like, well, no, that's not how it works. I mean, if anything, by training your obliques and you have a body type that develops muscle fairly easy, your internal and external obliques could actually make you look a little blockier. I mean, they're lean. They're absolutely lean, and I think it's a very attractive look, in both males and females. I think it looks good. But it's definitely going to make you blockier because you got thicker muscle around the midsection. It's muscle. That really is muscle. Where I failed to mention earlier, the anterior abdominals don't hypertrophy outwards anyway. So internal, external obliques do laterally, of course, on the side of your body, but they do come out a little. We're not talking you're going to gain an inch here. I mean, you wish it's going to be like a fraction of an inch, but they still grow a little. Which is why some of the bodybuilders who tended to have more blockier frames, I can think of 2, really stayed away from oblique training because they wanted to give more of the symmetry of a V taper, which means that the back is big and the upper back is big and tapers down into a small waist. And even if those muscles were really lean, they didn't want the appearance of a thicker, blockier waist. Arnold Schwarzenegger comes to mind with that. He had really big lats, but he also tended to have a bigger trunk, lower trunk area. So I don't know for sure, but I doubt he did too much oblique training for that reason. There are others that are far more blockier than him because I think Arnold actually has great symmetry. But, he didn't have this tiny, tiny waist. It was at least 32. And on a bodybuilder, even though he's pretty tall, that's not exactly small. I know that sounds crazy, but it's different nowadays. These guys are just monsters, huge. All right, and they can be worked by doing rotations and things like that, and they are important to do. And if you're an endurance athlete, like a runner and a swimmer, cycling not so much, although they do help you stay stable, but running, I mean, the obliques, you're rotating some. There's absolutely some rotation, and there's also the fighting of rotation, meaning when you realize you're rotating too much because of your arm swing or your leg follow through, and you need to correct that because it's wasted energy. Well, it's the obliques that are helping you correct it. So there's just no way around it. They're good to train. You get a lot of it while you run for sure. And when you swim, there's a lot of oblique rotation. So when you turn to breathe, that's coming from your obliques. I don't know if everybody out there knows how to swim, but you don't turn your neck to get your mouth out of the water to breathe. You turn your belly button. You're supposed to try to get your belly button to the wall. In other words, you're trying to get your shoulder vertical, which is very hard to do. Efficient swimmers can do it very easily. But whether it's hard or easy, that motion comes from your obliques. All right, so swimmers think, I got to work my core, so I can swim better. And then they're doing all these crunches. I'm like, what are you talking about? And they're like swim coaches, like literally having, and I'm not naming nobody, swim coaches that literally have their athletes are used to do all these crunches on the pool deck. And it was such a joke because the kids were barely doing them anyway. And I'm thinking, what the hell are you doing? Like, what does that do for these kids, except waste time, give them busy work and whatever. Which, look, I get it. Sometimes when you got a group of kids, it's, pretty hard to keep them all occupied for a certain amount of time. But, I would also argue there's much better ways to do it than that. Teach them some dynamic stretches or effective work they can do, what they call, their ground training, their land training, whatever. There's better things to do than wasting their time with all these silly crunches. And they would put their kickboards underneath them so their back wasn't hitting. And I'm like, oh, goodness gracious. Okay. But again, just, poor education, people not knowing, coaches not understanding the method to the madness and what they're really trying to accomplish. So, obliques, get 2 thumbs up, figure ways to train them, but don't go crazy with them. Don't do super high reps. You're not going to make your midsection smaller by exercising. You should be overloading them just like you would any other muscle group if you're trying to get stronger. Use appropriate load. I like to use the cable machine here at my gym and do rotations. Sometimes I do lateral flexion, which means it's kind of like what some people call TikToks. You're bending at the side downward, but rotations really are the best. But again, they need to be overloaded, and they don't need to be overdone. 1, 2, top 3 sets like you would your chest, like you would your biceps, like you would your back. Not like you would, not me, like you would your abdominals, 20 sets. Okay, nope, false. And finally, the most overlooked of the lower torso, the spinal erectors, and most notably the erector spinae, your lower back muscle that attaches to your glutes. And there's a bunch of spinal erectors. So remember I said earlier that your rectus abdominals actually flexed the spine. Well, your spinal erectors extend your spine. So that means you go backwards. That means if you do a deadlift as you're coming up, that's your spinal erectors. If you're doing a cobra on the floor because your trainer told you to train your lower back, that's good. That works your erector spinae specifically. So the erector spinae is the most important of the spinal erectors. Here's the crazy thing. So 90% of injuries that happen to the musculoskeletal system involve the lower back. So when people have reported going to the doctor, ACL, sprained ankle, all this kind of stuff, the lower back is one of the most common injuries brought to medical attention. Now, it could be, very minor, like you woke up with kind of a stiff back and you were a little concerned and they told you to take some Motrin because you just strained your back. Or it could be really serious, catastrophic type injuries. But the bottom line is that then most people don't know what to do about it after you're out of pain and we've resolved what caused it. Of course, all those things have to occur. But once that happens, the erector spinae needs to be trained. And so many people, including some of our clients, and some of them we just get tired of it. We don't fight them anymore. They're like, oh, I don't want to do the lower back machine because it hurts my back. We're like, how is that possible? How is safely strengthening the erector spinae hurting your back? Well, it's not possible. It's really not. That's just, out of fear or control, one or the other. And I get it. If you've hurt your back, you're like, man, I'm a little nervous. But then we explain to them, it's like, look, we don't hurt our back from things like this. As a matter of fact, most back injuries occur, number one, from imbalances, meaning they're not training their lower back muscle and they're doing too many abdominal exercises. Yes, you heard me. Repeat, write it down. They're not doing the erector spinae muscle group and they're doing too much, do I have to yell into the microphone? Too much anterior abdominal exercise, which causes an imbalance of kyphosis and lordosis, meaning everything's out of balance, and then that's far more likely to strain the lower back. Second way they injure it is just freak, like they go down to pick up their shoe and they went down fast and awkwardly and pulled a muscle. Or again, it could be more of a catastrophic type of thing, falling off a bicycle, whatever. I mean, all those things that we don't necessarily have all control over. But we do know this. Studies have proven it over and over and over. A strong erector spinae equates to less low back pain. I worked with a doctor here in town. He's going to get a free plug right here because, he earned it because he's really good at what he did. But it was Mike Fulton. He's still in business right now, and his son Brent Fulton has taken over the practice, and Mike still does some work, I believe. Last I talked to him a couple years ago. And they have a back program there, and they emphasize this over and over and over. And I did some personal training for them over 20 years ago. And I learned a lot from Mike. He's the dad, and he did a lot of work with the University of Florida. And he's an orthopedic surgeon that essentially said, I'm not going to do surgery anymore because a lot of people that are sent to me for surgery don't need surgery, and what they need is a stronger lower back. And I really admire that. I would guess, I don't know, I'm not saying he's hurting or anything by any means, but I would guess there's a lot more money in surgery than back rehab, I would guess. So he chose the right path, in my opinion. And he's been strength training backs forever, and he showed me the literature. He showed me. He says it's right here. Stronger back on our machine, because they measure it with a big old Med-X lower back machine that's $100,000 unit, and it gives you a computer printout, and it's an isometric contraction. They can measure exactly your force output, and then you obviously give them your pain rating as you go. I don't know if you go 2-3 times a week or 1 time a week, whatever. And every 6 weeks or so, there's an evaluation, and you look at your isometric strength gains on the machine versus your amount of pain, and there is a direct causation. Stronger erector spinae made the pain go away. Hear that? Man, that rhymed. That was awesome. Can I do it again? Stronger erector spinae made the pain go away. Let's sing it. Stronger erector spinae made the pain go away. Oh God, my poor clients. Now I'm going to be saying this all day. I literally just did that by accident. It sounds so awesome. I really think I need a record deal. Anyway, but it's true. I mean, it really, really, really is true. And there's so many different ways to train it. I mean, yeah, having a nice $100,000 Med-X back machine is one, okay? Me, can't afford it, don't ask, not coming in here, can't do it, nope. But a simple lower back machine, that's just the basic machine with plates on it like we have here and so many places have, which really most people could literally just hang their towel on it at the YMCA and other gyms because they don't use it. Because they're so ignorant, and remember, ignorant isn't a shot. It's they don't know better. That's what it means, and so they don't use it. But you go in the ab, you go by the erector spinae machine, and there it sits doing absolutely nothing, and it's really, really too bad. And if you don't have that kind of equipment, you work out in your garage, you work out at home, that's fine too. There's Cobra exercises you can do where you lay on the floor. You raise your legs, you raise your arms, you squeeze your lower back. It's a great way to strength train on the erector spinae muscles. You can use the hyperextension bench at the gyms where you see people put their legs under the pads and then you lift up like you're pulling your head from the floor up to the top and squeeze. You can do that. That's a great way to do it. I mean, there's a lot of different ways to train your muscles. Just know what you're supposed to be doing. You're supposed to be extending your spine from the waist. That is what the erector spinae does. That's called spinal extension, and you're supposed to do it. Okay? Absolutely include that in your program. Number one. Okay, ready? Let's prioritize them. Number one, do it. I don't care how you do it. Do it. Good client of mine worked her hard this morning. At the end I think we did 25 or 30 really strict prone cobras at the end, where she really squeezed the muscles, felt the muscles, went to failure or close. But boom, it's all it takes. Do it. Doesn't take a lot of sets. Do it. It's a perfect way to do it. Do them on the machines, do them however, but do them. First priority, do them. Second priority, train those obliques, especially if you're an athlete, an endurance athlete. Train them. Train them by doing rotations. If you don't have the machines, use a medicine ball, but train them. And again, not to make your love handle smaller. That's impossible through exercise. It's not impossible through diet and cardio. So overload them. Figure out ways to do that. In other words, keep the reps in the 10 to 12 range or whatever. Use heavier loads. If you're worried about getting blocky, then don't do them. But just know that those muscles definitely add to your strength. And lastly, the anterior abs. I'd say for most people, stop it. Just don't do it. It's such a waste of time. A lot of times I use it as a warm-up just because it's a good way to get people into exercise. That's fine. But doing too many or worrying about them or doing them for the wrong reason is just such a waste of time. If you've been told by your doctor you have really, really weak abdominal tissue and you're getting hernias or other things, then we got to break into the sit-ups and break into the crunches. Absolutely. That's not most people's case, though, especially active people. It's not the problem, all right? They're just doing it for reasons, as I already discussed. They think it's going to make their stomach smaller. They really, really don't know better, or it's an easier way to exercise, But hopefully I handled that one area, which is they don't know better. And, some of you are still going to override it and do it anyway because you just won't listen. People just won't listen sometimes when it comes to abs. You talk to any credentialed trainer and they will tell you it's probably their number one frustration. People that think that crunches make their stomach smaller. And they almost get mad at you if you don't include it. It's like, well, what about abs? It's like, I just told you. But, again, we takes us a while sometimes to learn, right? It takes us a really long time, But think about it as energy. Think about where do you want to put your energy and time. Now, people who are like really, really time-driven people, they keep their calendars on their phones and they're working and they've got limited time. They listen. Like, you know what? You tell me that this isn't the most efficient use of my time, I'm not doing it. They listen. Sometimes people with more time in their hands end up doing things that aren't the best for them, right? Woo, we all know that. All right, so let me thank our second sponsor, which I'm very great to have. As you know, or many of you know, I love to eat vegetarian dishes. I love to eat plant-based dishes, and man, do I love salads. And they got all of the above, all right? They're called the Istanbul Turkish Mediterranean Cuisine, and they are phenomenal. They're located at 488 South Young Street, Ormond Beach, 32174. And if you would like to order out, they do that too. Give them a shout, 386-492-7100. You can also order online at istanbulflorida.com. Give them a shout. Thank you for sponsoring. And until next time, be Max Fit, be Max Well.